Welcome everyone. I am Mr. Goldenbaum, and this is Supremacy 1914. We are back on the Scattered America map. It is the end of day 13, and as you can see here, we have passed up YOLO once again, playing as Louisiana. He took the lead here on day 12. We lost it. We lost the lead on day 12, but we took it back on day 13 with very convincing results. Fighting for the third place slot, we still have Chihuahua and Utah. Certainly a lot going on there, a lot of back and forth that we can touch on. When we last left off, we had just begun the initial stages of our invasion of Missouri. Well, as you can see here today, it's been a total success. So the invasion of Missouri was slower than I would have liked. Unfortunately, he had a few positions right by us that were fortified, and he had a large enough stack of troops where had we engaged one of them, it would have been possible for him to kind of reinforce and potentially cost us additional units and soldiers that we didn't want to commit or waste. So what we ended up doing is just kind of started playing off a little conservative. Given that we still had South Dakota to contend with, I wasn't up for a kind of a one-on-one scrappy fight where even if you're taking the more efficient trades and you're making progress and you are crippling your opponent, it would have cost too many soldiers, and I want to preserve as much as I can for the fight above. So with Missouri, the plan was really to start peppering some of his troops on the outskirts here, cause as much damage as we can, cause some morale damage, forcing him to react. And what I want is that reaction. I want him to commit to something and make that first mistake. It's much easier to defend than it is to attack, so I wanted to reverse the roles there and put him on the offensive, which would give us a huge advantage. So after we had defeated all of the troops here in Eureka, and we had a few artillery, I think we ended up with 3. We have 4 at the moment, but we had 3. We wiped out the forces in Eureka, and then we went on to this other province here in Aurora. And what's nice is the travel distances here are very short, which means I can kind of get into position quickly and kind of pull back as needed, especially with the railroad we have here. And I also wanted to go for these 2 provinces to kind of expand this kind of little buffer zone of engagements and hopefully, take these provinces over, start raising the morale so we're able to kind of complete additional operations of our own past these territories. Well, after we had repositioned all of our forces just outside of Aurora while still keeping, I suppose it's not fair to say all of our forces. We kept some large reserves here holding our key provinces so that Missouri really wasn't able to counterattack, or at least it would give us an opportunity to regroup and hold. And he actually did just that. He sent over some troops over here from Mountain Home. We stacked them entirely in Fort Smith. But once we set up position here and we got our 3 artillery into place, we started doing a lot of damage in Aurora. And unfortunately, Missouri made the mistake of sending all of his soldiers over here to Aurora. We were perfectly fine with that. We had a much larger stack than he did, so if he went on the offensive, we would have been fine. But what we actually did is we whittled down the fort here with the artillery. We brought up Hank's army, captured the province, and what ended up happening is he was just sending, little groups of troops here, like 2, 3, 5, 6,000, 11,000, just small little forces, and well, you go up against a huge 90 stack, it's not going to turn out well for you. So we were actually able to send Marco over here to start capturing territories, some 1K infantry units on forced march to start capturing a bunch of stuff. We had a counterattack here from the forces that survived Fort Smith, go into Mountain Home, Mountain View, and we went ahead, sacked the capital, took St. Louis, Mexico. Interesting. I guess there's a city called Mexico in Missouri. It was a total annihilation at that point. I mean, if we take a look at the paper, I mean, you take a look at the paper right here. We lost a single 1,000 stack compared to Missouri, who lost all 82,000 troops. He was able to group up some of his forces in this level 2 fortified province. At this stage, he's already lost 11,000 units, so that's over half, or I should say that's a third of the force. The casualties here are only a third. The casualties will slowly start to rise as that hit points, as this hit point bar goes down, as there's less hit points needed, less damage needed to eliminate each infantry unit. So YOLO's doing a great job here. He should be able to destroy the remaining forces, and we'll be able to clear up 50,000 of my troops, almost 50,000 of YOLO's troops. He'll be able to reinforce the border. Things are looking really good in the provinces here in Missouri. We were able to quickly, if we transition over here to the south, we were able to sack another one of these South American, I guess technically not South America, Latin American capitals here in Managua. What was odd is we actually saw an invasion from North Carolina come over here, which was surprising. We did wipe out those troops and proceed to the capital. We got a nice capital bonus, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. It looks like our troops are going to arrive in 2 seconds. I was going to do the little trick where we could arrive there a little earlier, but let's just refresh and see what the damage was. Oh, wow. All right. Did we lose any cavalry? We did not. That is huge. I don't care for the province here, so we are going to start bringing, honestly, all of our troops out here in Mexico back to the front. The morale of some of the provinces here in the south isn't the best, though with the 2 capital sacks, it has risen pretty well. Unfortunately, it looks like some of these will go down, but not drastically. So this has given a huge boost. Taking that capital right now has given us a huge boost to a lot of our resource production, especially the additional morale here in these double provinces is going to help out tremendously. We were able to only sack 4,000, which, hey, it's not the resources at this point. It's the morale. So I will certainly take it. But with that, we no longer have to garrison a lot of these other areas. They're not going to revolt. So that was kind of the plan here. I didn't want to rush over to South Dakota at the moment. Unfortunately, I do not want to be sitting in these low morale provinces, taking these small artillery fights for provinces that don't even have high morale for South Dakota. What we're going to do instead is actually regroup in the west, raise our hit points, and we are going to attempt the invasion here of his core heartland in the north, where he has a lot of his railroads and I believe factory production just up here in Pierre. These are key provinces for him that are producing most of his grain. If we take a look again at his double resources, he's got the 2 grain, captured an additional one, so he's set there. He's got the steel. I think he's in a good position with materials, but he's desperate for energy. So we're certainly going to hit this oil here, hit this coal, and we may even go over for these west for these 3 additional provinces. Even though they're not creating a surplus in theory, these are still critical for him, so I could see his morale spiral even further. If we hit the capital, it's essentially game over. Unfortunately, with South Dakota, he's spiraling. Even if we don't go to war, you really shouldn't have your starting provinces with less than 100% morale. Yes, you could have it go lower with the expansion penalty. And if you look at our morale, we do have a 4 expansion penalty because we have passed a threshold for this map. I don't know what it is, as each map is different. The larger the map size, the more provinces you could take without running into this expansion penalty. But other than that, I mean, this really shouldn't be happening. I kind of feel bad, but we do have to finish him off, and hopefully it'll be a learning experience for him to manage his resources, use any excess supplies maybe that you're not using. You can sell them potentially at a large profit in the market and use that to cover any shortages that you may have while continuing to expand your infrastructure and production. What we've actually been doing is, with this huge surplus of grain and fish we have, we've just been selling this on the market. It's been just flying off like hotcakes, making us a ton of cash. And with that cash, we've actually gone ahead and have been purchasing additional lumber to fuel a lot of our factories and allowing us to change our sliders to go heavy on the wood, which allows us to get almost 2,000 materials, iron ore specifically, per hour, which means we can start cranking out more of these tanks while continuing to make sure that, hey, we're not neglecting our infrastructure. We're getting these level 4 factories up. We're building these railroads to continue to scale these additional resources, give us more, and then in turn invest that more and increase our troop production. Taking a look at some of these provinces, and I know we were chatting a little bit with Minnesota as well. I don't know what they were doing in the early game. Minnesota has done a great job in keeping his morale up. As you can see, if Minnesota can do it at 100%, then a player like South Dakota, who did conquer all these territories pretty well. I mean, 416 is 79. He certainly has his infantry game down. I know Minnesota had a few struggles over here with Michigan. I believe Michigan's out, so I can't take a look at his statistics that may have slowed him down. But you can certainly look at Minnesota and see that he has been able to meet all of the consumption needs for his population, which means morale goes up and he produces more resources. What I don't like to see is he has multiple buildings in a lot of these territories. You could make the argument that there could be some fortifications here. Fortifications can be extremely helpful, but they do cost a lot of resources, which is why I like investing in a few of those armored cars earlier. It's because you're able to then use those as a mobile defense. An area that you think needs a fortification, maybe a few days later, you don't need it anymore. The other player turns into a computer. You go on the offensive and secure the territory. It makes some of these forts useless, so early on in the game, I tend to avoid them unless I need them to hold key strategic locations to then pull some of my forces away, give me additional troops to work with in a different offensive, and leave that front a little, not undefended, but leave it with a smaller garrison. He may also have workshops, which I would not recommend building workshops outside of your double provinces unless you're in the late game, flowing with resources, and you're transitioning into factories in a lot of your provinces, especially, let's say, like an oil, to continue to scale up. You really shouldn't be doing that. These are key resources that you'll need later on in the game. Definitely see that he's building up his double province, and I believe he's got the wood, so certainly the right call there. I'm sure he has some factories going, workshops, and maybe a barracks. But these other provinces, unless these are harbors, I think this is a waste of resources. The Utah front has been spicy. It looks like Chihuahua's original offensive had been pushed back. I believe he lost 11,000 troops or so in the invasion. So it looks like he's lost 7. Okay, so a little less than that. I think there was another 4 stack. Maybe he got out. Utah lost 10 originally in Yuma, and I believe like an armored balloon. But since then, it's been a little bit of a stalemate. Right now is an active time for Utah. Later in the day is when Chihuahua goes on the offensive. So this is a classic case of 2 players on at different times. The thing to avoid for Utah is to not leave his artillery exposed when he knows he won't be able to protect them. Chihuahua, if he had an artillery force in the area, would be able to come up, station the province, and then start firing away at these 3 artillery pieces. Yes, there might be a blocker here with Hank, but that's not going to help you when your opponent has range. Similarly, if Chihuahua was attacking some of these areas, and we know that Utah has an artillery force, he could go after some of these exposed units. As it stands right now, he's already been able to take out 3,000 infantry. This fortification is still in production, but it has lost a good chunk of its hit points, meaning that these units will slowly gain additional protection, but at some point this will start to drop unless Chihuahua commits additional resources. But overall, this is a good position to be in for Utah. Chihuahua can't really counterattack as he's going to go up against the wall, and if he blindly sends his units, they would get wiped in this situation, as they would only have 80 attack, 505 hit points, whereas the infantry stack station here, and that's not even counting this 58 here, would have an entire 145 with over 1,000 hit points. So Utah's in great position. I would have loved to have seen him expand with a few one-stack troops in the area here, potentially capturing a free province here on the coast with a level 2 fort. Even if he can't hold it, just keeping an infantry unit there might cause some additional damage in the province, lower the morale for Chihuahua. But had he kept it expanding, he could have reached a few of these additional units, chipping away at Chihuahua, and potentially even capturing the artillery off guard, which would have been a huge boon for him. That's expensive, and Chihuahua really can't afford to produce artillery, as he has a double wood province, but I mean, there's no factory, no railroad, nothing. He has a factory and a railroad and a harbor on this food and this food, but that really doesn't do much for him. He may be hitting hard with food, but that isn't going to impact a lot of his production, so he may be limited at a single artillery unit for the time being. And should he lose that artillery unit, it would put Utah at a significant advantage. You did see here that Chihuahua was able to wrap up the North Californian force in the area. He baited them into following him into another fortified position here in Mexicali, where I believe he stationed his artillery just out of reach. There was a huge battle that took place here, ultimately ending the North Californian troops in the area. He still got some to deal with up here, fortification, so this will be slower. And unfortunately, because he committed to the fight with Utah, he can't bring these additional reinforcements into Merced, which he could have easily used to smash San Francisco, take Sacramento, take Susanville, and essentially end the game here for the AI in North California, as they really wouldn't be able to produce any additional troops. He could have surrounded this last area with a fortification, drawn out any troops. Unfortunately, though, he's stuck in the quagmire with Utah. And with that, we'll see you all in the next one.